Welcome back. It's me, Lou, and I'm here for a custom action figure review. Okay, so this is a very special action figure to me. Now this is a one-off. You can't buy this in stores. It's a custom figure that I made, and it's Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher Wild Hunt, or Geralt from Rivia. I can never pronounce his name like correct twice. I don't know. In my brain, I always say one thing when I'm supposed to say something else. So yeah, here's Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher: The Wild Hunt. And as I stated, this is a custom action figure. You can't buy this in stores, and I love this thing. It has a lot of sentimental attachment to it, if you will. Okay, so a while back, I want to say back in this might have been early 2020 or maybe even late 2019. So way back when McFarlane Toys announced that they were going to be producing action figures for the video game The Witcher Wild Hunt, the third Witcher game. And at the time of the announcement, I think they said they were only going to... The only thing they revealed was that they were making that 12-inch Geralt of Rivia figure. And then I was excited because I'm like, all right, we're finally getting some Witcher action figures. But then at the same time, I was kind of disappointed because I'm like, oh, it's a 12-inch scale figure. So it was kind of bittersweet. It was like, part of me was excited that, I'd finally be able to have a Geralt of Rivia action figure. But at the same time, it was a weird scale. It was a much larger 12-inch scale. And it's not the first time we got Witcher toys. Dark Horse... it's debatable whether or not you want to call them action figures. They're more of figurines. But Dark Horse Comics, they produce a line of Witcher statues. They're really cool. They're really detailed. They're based off of the video game, and they're amazing. I haven't bought any of those just because, it's like I said, they kind of border a little bit more along the lines of statues and a little bit larger. I want to say I think they're about the same scale as maybe their line of Game of Thrones figurines, which are also beautiful. But for me, I wanted an action figure that was the proper scale that we've been getting lately. That 1/12 scale, 6 to 7 inch action figure. And at the time when McFarlane announced that they were going to be doing Witcher figures, it's just the 12-inch ones, and I'm like, oh man, I just want a normal 6 to 7 inch figure. So I took it upon myself. And I wanted to make this guy. And it's weird. It's a weird thing because I bought all the pieces I needed to make them. But it took me a while, almost like a year. Not a year. Maybe at least 6 months before I decided I was actually going to finally put them together. So yeah, here's my Geralt of Rivia custom Witcher action figure. And let's start from the beginning. Okay, so... This is where the figure this is where the figure ended. This is the completed figure, but it's a custom, and we'll ask the question, so how did the custom begin? The custom began with this guy right here. We have Jon Snow. Everyone loves Jon Snow. This is Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, and this was a McFarlane Toys figure also. Here's the original package. I loved this action figure line when it first came out. McFarlane Toys, they've always produced superb action figures. No one can match McFarlane Toys in terms of the detail, the sculpting, and, the package design, so on and so on. And when they announced these figures, I was elated. I was a big fan of the Game of Thrones figures that we got from, Funko. Funko had their line, is a very short-lived line. I think I only saw maybe 2 or 3 waves at the most. They had a wave of, they had a line of Funko, I think it was called Funko Legacy action figures, and they produced Game of Thrones. They're about maybe 6 to 6.5 inch scale figures. They were beautiful, they were sculpted really well, they came with accessories, but I think the problem with their line was that there were some quality control issues. I never ran into any, but then again, I didn't open all my figures. But I remember reading online that some people had issues with breakage with some of the action figures that Funko produced with the Game of Thrones stuff. So I think their quality control issues, were kind of very common. I'm not sure if that's what costed them the line, or why the line ended as soon as it did, but it was still a cool toy line nonetheless. I kind of wish it just kept on going, but it ended when it did. And then sometime much later, McFarlane Toys announced that they're going to be doing Game of Thrones figures, and I was ecstatic. For me, it was cool because in my head, I thought they were going to give us a ton of characters. Because Funko, they only hit so many characters. I think they might have only done maybe 9 to 12 different figures, and some of them might have just been repaints or whatever. But Game of Thrones, especially the HBO series, they had so many characters, and each character on the show lended themselves so well to be an action figure. You had the Mountain, you had the Hound, and the White Walkers, the dragons, and all the rich back history of even the secondary characters. Everyone deserved to have an action figure, but we never got them. Funko ended their line, maybe 2 or 3 waves in, and when McFarlane announced theirs, I was ecstatic. For me, it was like, oh my god, they're going to give us all these cool characters that we didn't get. But unfortunately, the McFarlane Game of Thrones figures was even shorter lived than the Funko ones. I think we only got 4 characters altogether. I think we got Jon Snow, we got Daenerys, we got the White Walker King, or whatever he's called, and then we got Arya Stark, and that I think she had a paint variation, and same with the White Walker. I think there was a paint variation on that one also. So as cool as these figures were, it was just so heartbreaking that they only gave us it's I don't know, four characters. And McFarlane, for whatever reason, they have a track history of that. I remember years and years ago, they got the license to do WWE, not necessarily action figures, but statues. And those were amazing too, but they only did so many of them. They had Harry Potter for a while. And just like Game of Thrones, I was excited because I thought they were going to give us a lot of Harry Potter stuff, but they only gave us the main kids, and it was in their civilian street clothes. They weren't wearing their school uniforms, and we got a Voldemort, I think maybe 1 or 2 dragons, and then maybe a hippogriff, I think. So that was very disappointing, and it was heartbreaking because you look at this figure and then the possibilities for what they could have done with the other characters. It's man, they just totally missed out and dropped the ball on that. So yeah, in terms of, I love this figure. It's great. And then I remember this used to be at my desk at work. This was one of my desk toys. I'd always be fiddling around with it. And then when McFarlane announced that they were doing Witcher figures, I remember that day I was just kind of I was just daydreaming. I was at my work desk just thinking, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be cool. I'm gonna get some cool McFarlane Witcher figures, but it's gonna be a 12-inch figure. And then in my head, I'm like, I don't know where I'm gonna display something like that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep it in the box. I just really want a 6-inch action figure. And then as I was fiddling with this guy, I'm kind of looking at it. I'm like, you know what? I think I could get away and turn this guy into Geralt of Rivia and make my own 6-inch Witcher action figure. So thus the journey began. And I went out to my mall and I got another, this is me being crazy. I got another one of these because this is the one I had at work. And then I'm like, I still need one mint on card. So I went to the mall, and I think this might have been clearanced. So I got this guy because I just wanted one mint on card. And then being crazy again, I'm like, I can't modify my desk toy. I have sentimental attachment to this guy. This guy stood by me all those long nights at work when I had last minute production stuff to do, and I don't know. I was very fond of this desk toy. So I'm like, I'm just going to buy another one. So I found another one at Target for clearance, and that became my custom, which is eventually this guy here. So yeah, this embodies Geralt of Rivia as he appears in the third Witcher game. Now, if you didn't see this figure, this is a pretty, at least in my opinion, this is a pretty convincing look because he hits all the marks that he's supposed to have. He has the shoulder pads. The color scheme is somewhat close to what he looks like in the video game. I think more so like he does in the second video game. His sword is Jon Snow's sword, but it has a wolf at the top of the hilt, which fits perfectly because, you know, Geralt of Rivia, I think he's like the White Wolf, if I remember correctly. So he has two swords if you've played the video games. He has a steel sword, and then he also has a silver sword. And the silver sword's used to, like, you know, monsters, they don't like silver. So anytime he encounters a monster, you want to use the silver sword. So I made sure I gave him an extra sword, and that's the one on the back. And that actually belongs to a Lord of the Rings Aragorn figure. But it's not, and what's the name of his sword? Anduil? But it's not the sword he gets at the end. It's, I think, the sword he has as he's a ranger. So yeah, he has two swords, just like he's supposed to have. And I tried to make his costume. One thing with doing costumes, I hate painting costumes. Not because I hate painting, but I don't like the painting because when you start moving stuff around, you get joint rub. So I kind of wanted to like keep this guy to a bare minimum. So thankfully, his color scheme kind of fit what Geralt of Rivia's costume looks like in the second game. It's a little bit more muted, a lot of grays, a lot of browns. Where I think in the third game, it's amped up with a little bit more color. So I kind of wanted to keep his color scheme in line with what I remember him being, because I never completed the third game. I mean, to be honest, I've never completed any of the Witcher games. I played all three of them. I played the first one, the second one, and the third one. I've never played the weird spin-off games, but I do consider myself a casual fan. I love the TV show on Netflix. The anime, I just saw that last week, Nightmare of the Wolf. That's amazing. Very awesome. If you haven't seen the anime, check it out. It's great. So I'm running off on a tangent here, as usual. But so yeah, this guy here used to be Jon Snow. And we'll talk about the process involved. So for making this guy, I had the pieces, and I just threw them in a box. I'm like, one of these days, I'll get around to making my custom Geralt of Rivia. And it wasn't until maybe like 1 or 2 months into the pandemic, or actually I take it back, it was much later than that. So we went into the pandemic back in March of 2020, and then I actually dated when I completed the figure here. I completed the figure here in August. So I was sitting on the pieces to make this figure for probably close to maybe like 9 to 10 months before I finally caved in and decided I was going to make it. So here's the completed piece, and let's go over the process I used to make my Geralt of Rivia figure. So let's remove his sword and his dragon dagger, or whatever it is. Okay, so as you can see here, it's the same figure. Alright, so Geralt of Rivia has shoulder pads. And so what I did was I cut off the excess flaps here. As you can see, I cut off the excess flaps on the front and the back to shorten his upper torso. You know, so this uniform here, it's the exact same as this, but I just trimmed it, and I used the excess to make the shoulder pads. To attach it, I used a gel super glue, and that worked like a charm. It really adheres. This is not coming off. He has these harnesses that run across his chest, and again, I just used the belt. He has this excess of belt right here. I cut off the excess, glued it to the front of his torso to make that harness right there. In terms of the color scheme, Geralt of Rivia, his sleeves, it's almost kind of like chainmail on certain costumes. So I just colored that, I think it's gunmetal on his sleeves up there. Geralt of Rivia, he kind of has that Witcher emblem around his neck, that kind of like necklace. So then I went into my Marvel Legends, and I found like a silver necklace. And I believe, if you look close enough, you could tell it's just a disco ball because it belonged to Marvel Legends Dazzler. So I used that for the necklace, and I kind of glued it just to keep it in place. And it still works for the costume, just because Jon Snow, on the top of his chest, there's actually an emblem of a wolf here. Or in the case of Game of Thrones, it's a dire wolf, since that's the sigil of the House Stark. So it's, you know, it all kind of fits together in a weird way. He has the necklace, he has the wolf imagery on his uniform. He kind of has some of the chainmail, he has the shoulder pads, he has the harnesses. So I'm hitting all the key notes of creating Geralt of Rivia's costume. So the appearance is there. Geralt in the third game, he's much older, so I gave him the white hair with a gray wash. Same with the beard. I even carved a scar over his eye that you can see right there. Now, one thing with this figure here is that the Jon Snow, his uniform, it's very loose fitting on his body. He kind of just swims around in it. It doesn't hug his form very well. Where if you play The Witcher, Geralt, he's very muscular. His uniform fits very snug. So in order to solve that dilemma so for his uniform, I cut a slit down both sides, and then I trimmed some of the excess. And then it's a trick I learned from one of my friends who used to work at retail. She used to work at one of the girly clothing stores. I think it might have been like Forever 21 or something. And then she was explaining to me that, sometimes like the jackets and coats don't fit as snug as they should on the mannequins. So what they do is that they'll put a coat on a mannequin, and then they'll take the sides of the coat and pull it back. So you're pulling the coat back so it really hugs the curves of the figure. And then what they'll do is that they'll take like a binder clip, such as like, here's a binder clip. They'll take a binder clip, and then they'll take the two parts of the coat and just clip it together so that the coat looks like it's like really hugging the waist of the figure. So that's what I wanted to recreate here. This figure here, he has no sense of musculature on his body, especially like, there's no definition with it where his lat muscles are. It's like he's almost very like a traffic cone. He kind of like, this kind of goes out. He kind of flares out like bell bottoms. So my goal here was to like, what could I do to make this a little bit more form-fitting? So like I said, I cut a slit down both sides of the uniform. It's a very soft, rubbery plastic. Cut off the excess that I didn't need, and then I glued it so that after I glued it together, it became very form-fitting, and it fit really tight like that. So that way, he looked a little bit slimmer. It looks like he has a little bit more muscle and definition to him. And that's what the end result was right here. So that's how I kind of like got that to like, make him look a little bit more slimmed down. And then for his crotch piece too, I kind of want to give him crotch protection. Because this here, once you raise the flap, it's very bare. There's no texture on his lower torso. So with some of the excess material I had here, I cut some of it out. And then I applied super glue and glued it here, just so that his lower torso had some texture to it. So yeah, this is my Geralt of Rivia. I love this figure, has a lot of sentimental value. In terms of the package, I just reused the original clamshell. So here's the clamshell. And what I did was, in order to make the graphics for this one, is I took all the cardboard inserts, threw it on my scanner, just so I'd have the proper dimensions. Took that in Photoshop, and then I just redesigned it. I just grabbed the logos off the internet, the images off the internet. And having a background in graphic design, I kind of just did what I can to make the package inserts look legit. So I kind of wanted to stay within a certain color scheme. Geralt, he has a blue costume in one of the games. And this navy blue, I don't know, this felt appropriate for this character because the character's colors are very muted as is. So when you have like the white logo and the red, the red blood markings here, having the blue just gives it some contrast and some pop. Likewise, having a little bit of gold trim. We have the CD Projekt logo. Ages 12 and up. Ages 12 and up. McFarlane Toys. Over here we have one of the emblems from Game of Thrones. I think this is from Daenerys' house, I think. And we have the Iron Throne here. For this, I decided to have one of Geralt's swords. And on the back, and this is a nice portrait of him in the game. I thought that looked cool. And on the bottom, if you can see it, let's get into focus. Yeah, on the bottom, there's my name, and then I dated the figure when I completed it. It's August 28th, 2020. So it wasn't that, it was almost, a little bit over a year ago that I completed this figure. So yeah, I'm kind of going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I hope everything I said was, audible and easy to understand. I've been recording videos all day, so I'm like losing my voice, and I'm also kind of like losing my mind a little. And since we have this guy out, let's bring out the legit. All right, so here's the legit McFarlane Geralt of Rivia. So this is as he appears in the third game. Yeah, so for me, it's just kind of like, I just wanted to hit all the important parts, you know. Geralt's always had shoulder pads, and this, it's like I said, this look is a little bit more reminiscent of his appearance in the second game, not so much the third game. But I think it's okay, it pulls it off. For me, this was a placeholder because, in all honesty, this was before I knew that McFarlane was going to give us a proper scaled figure. You know, like I said, you know, at the time, they only announced a 12-inch figure. I didn't know they were going to give us a 7-inch figure until much later. But for me, I just needed a properly scaled figure, so that's where this came in. You know, is it perfect? By all means, no. It's not perfect. It's not accurate to the video game. But for me, it's a good enough placeholder until I got this one. Will it replace? Does this replace this one? Oh, not at all. I've so much sentimental value in this, and like I said before, you know, if you've never dabbled in custom action figure making, I strongly suggest you try it, even just one time. You know, it could be like a head swap, a simple color repaint. It's so rewarding when you could like take something and make it your own. You know, whether it's a comic book or a video game or a movie, if there's a character you're really fond of, and if they don't make an action figure for it, you know, take it upon yourself and just challenge yourself. You know, try to make an action figure, a custom. And there's so many tutorials out there on the internet, on YouTube. And it's all very motivating. It's all very inspiring. You know, just seeing what some people could do, you know, in terms of creating an action figure, it's amazing. So for me, the creator, even though this is not an accurate portrayal of what he looks like in the video game or in the TV show, you know, for me, it has a lot of sentimental attachment. You know, it's a chance for me to be creative. It's a chance for me to, like, flex my brain muscles a little because there's some problem solving involved. And it's a fun, you know, it's a fun hobby. You know, if you're a toy collector, you know, there's a completely different world when it comes to customs. You know, if you go on eBay or just Google custom this, custom that, and you'll just see all the amazing things people are making. You know, I've seen so many great custom Halo figures, so many great custom Star Wars figures, Marvel Legends especially. You know, it's all out there. So, you know, this is like, I don't know, I can't say enough about customizing. It's a fun hobby. It's very rewarding. Especially nowadays, you know, with the way the world is right now. You know, if you need a hobby to take up, you know, and if you're a toy collector, you know, just give this a shot. You know, keep it simple at first. You know, maybe do a head swap or a repaint, and I think you'll find it very, very rewarding. So much like my other videos, I'm running off on a tangent. I'm probably just babbling a lot of nonsense right now. But I don't know. This is a fun thing for me. I enjoy this process of just talking about toys. A lot of my friends, they've exited the game. they've entered the full world of adulthood. You know, they have spouses, they have children, mortgages, and all that kind of stuff, where I'm kind of caught in this mode of arrested development. You know, I don't really think I'm going to grow up unless unless I'm kind of like cornered into that position. But I enjoy it, you know, outside of being a responsible adult with a job and other things, you know, toys and action figures and customizing and art and video games and comic books and pop culture. It's one of those escapes that's, you know, afforded me to keep my sanity and to keep me mildly entertained in my life. So I enjoy sharing that aspect of my life with you. So wrapping this up, once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out my custom Geralt of Rivia action figure. I have lots of videos, so if you're new to my channel, welcome. Check out all my reviews and customs. If you're a returning subscriber or viewer, you know, thanks again. Thank you so much for all your comments, support, and likes. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next time, go out there, buy toys, make toys, and just enjoy your life. All right, take care.